Welcome to Teams Transformed, the podcast for people who want to see real team transformation.
For courageous coaches, curious leaders, and anyone passionate about unlocking the true power of teams.
We're your hosts, Georgina
and Allard,
here to journey with you through transformational insights on how to coach teams with presence, depth, and emergence.
Let's explore not just the tools, but the art of transforming teams. Hi everyone, in today's episode we look at how to design a team coaching intervention over time, being mindful of balancing structure with emergence, and we share some lessons learned the hard way along the way. Enjoy! Hi there everyone, welcome back for episode 3. 3 already, 3, time flies.
Yeah, in this session we thought it would be really useful to think about, so you get an opportunity for team coaching. Where do you start the work? What does it look like? What's the shape of team coaching over time? And what's the overall structure or architecture look like of team coaching?
Yeah, I was going to say, where do you start the work and how do you start the work? I'm reminded of, in the I wish I had known this earlier files, but I remember starting an assignment once. I think I've mentioned it to you before. A piece of work that came to me not directly, but through really one of those coaching brokers, where I was asked to work with the team and on a specific day and with little or no prior information really. And I remember starting out the work in the first meeting with the team in a very sort of emergent kind of way, because I was really, it's just when I was starting, I think, to fall in love with the whole approach of letting things unfold and navigating without a map and letting figures emerge and all that stuff. And I remember, I think I got to the meeting about 10 or 12 of them, and I think the first question that came out of my mouth was, "So, guys, what do you want to talk about today?" And it was way too much emergence, way too little structure too soon. And I remember them just looking at me going, "But surely you should know what we need to be talking about, and you tell us what the work is and what needs to be done." So the reason I'm bringing that up is that where do we start the work and how do we start the work is hugely important. And we may well need a bit of structure up front, right?
That's such a valuable story to hear, because many of us who've been excited about the magic of emergence want to get to it quickly and want to get into doing real work and into meaningful work. And sometimes we jump to it too quickly. So let's delve into that story a little bit more, Al. When you think back to the start, what was missing?
Well, structure was missing, and I think because structure was missing, there wasn't any. There wasn't. I think we've used the word in a previous episode. I had not built a container yet, to do the work. There wasn't any safety yet, and that's the thing about structure. Too much structure in this work can really stifle the whole approach and stifle the work. But not enough structure is not desirable. Not desirable either. And so, emergent team coaching is all about going beyond the script and letting the process unfold. But that's only possible, I think, if we've put certain guardrails in place, if we've built a bit of that container.
When you were talking about a container and guardrails, it made me think like a frame, a picture frame, and how the frame contains the picture. And, some of the things that are in the frame are things like time. How long have we got? What's the focus of the session? What's my role? What's your role? And sometimes, when team members arrive for team coaching, they can carry a lot of anxiety about what's going to be revealed. Do I want to reveal stuff about myself? Are we going to have difficult conversations? There's a reason that people have been avoiding making visible what's invisible, because they carry a lot of tension around it. So part of that container building, as you were saying, is trust and safety, and really calming down the team's nervous system and our own to be able to really work with what's underneath, what's here, what's sitting we need to attend to.
Hey, and when I'm thinking back to the question, what else was missing was that good old notion of contact before contract. Well, first of all, I don't think I'd done any good contracting really. I'd
Yes.
done a bit of contracting, I think, with the person who who got me that piece of work, and then a little bit of contracting with the team leader on a separate call, but not enough, and certainly not enough contact before contract. And what I mean by that is just getting to know each other really, and getting all the voices in the room, making sure people felt safe and felt heard and felt that there was at least a good enough opportunity for them to speak their mind. And so, yeah, lots of stuff was. So this is like how not to start the work.
Yeah, it's really important to build the relational ground before we get into even touching into what the real work might be. It's so important to appreciate the reasons why a team hasn't done that for themselves. And that work of building that container can take some time, depending on the situation of the team, how much tension's in their system, how much fear, how much resistance, and therefore no two pieces of team coaching will ever look the same.
Yeah. No. And so what I think what I learned from that is it's never going to be perfect from the beginning. I think you're never going to have the perfect picture frame before you start. But it's about having a good enough frame, having a good enough contract in place,
Yeah.
and being really mindful of what we often call minimum viable structure. What's the minimum amount of structure that I need to offer, that we need to put into place?
Yeah.
And so the work over time, as we've seen in that visual of a team coaching journey that we sometimes talk about, and maybe we can put that on screen in this beautiful podcast video. But there's that descending line in the background, which goes from maybe more structuring and more facilitative stance on behalf of the coach at the beginning, at the outset of the work, and then but always keeping that to a minimum necessary kind of, how little, just enough, but not too much, so that we hand over the responsibility for structuring and for leading and for logistics and all that. So we hand that over to the team that we're working with over time, as soon as that's feasible.
It's worth staying with that for a moment. You said a facilitative stance. When we're in that mode, we're actually leading because we're channeling energy. Even if we're saying, team, go into pairs, have a conversation about what brings you here today and what would excite you about our work together. We're structuring. We're saying you've got 5 minutes to do that, then you're going to report back. We're channeling energy, a bit like riverbanks, kind of channel a river towards the river mouth. And it's an important function in a team. And of course, that's why team leadership exists, is to channel the energy of a team in a common and meaningful direction. So all the time that we're inhabiting that facilitator role, we're stepping into a team member role temporarily. So we don't want to hold on to that too long, or the team becomes dependent on us to keep doing that, to keep providing. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? What are the outcomes? We're looking to activate that in the team. But as you found out in your uncomfortable experience, oftentimes we can't start there. We need to provide that clarity up front.
Yeah.
So if we look at we'll put a handout in the session notes as well. And people can see this in my book, Mastering the Art of Team Coaching, or in the accompanying workbook. We put it everywhere. Something we call a team coaching journey. And this is an illustration that I use with many teams when I'm about to start work with them. So say this is what team coaching might look like. It tends to go through a number of different stages, and each stage has a different intent. We may not need them all, or we might end up with some different stages along that team coaching journey, depending on what we discover along the way. But it's helpful to have the team coaching journey as a starter for 10. And for those who've downloaded it or look at it or just in your imagination, I think everybody would recognize that it starts with an initial conversation. Somebody's going to email you or call you or contact you saying, hey, got a team that could do with some of your help. And the work begins there, really, as much as it may not be paid work. Right at that start, from that first conversation, we're gathering important data.
Yeah, and there may be an official kind of brief or scoping of the work at that time, and it often sounds like at that early stage, it often sounds like something along the lines of, I've got a group of 10, I've got a team of 10 highly talented individuals, super achievers. Yet when they come together, they still seem to be pulling the sheets their own way. And so your brief as the team coach is to turn this into one team. That notion of we need to be one team.
Yeah, exactly. They say, hi, the strongest people, they're really great people, so why can't they work together?
Yeah.
Of course, many of us can relate to that, because working together in collaboration with other people can be really hard. We bring ourselves to every situation. So I have the greatest empathy for team leaders and HR professionals who are wanting to support a team in coming more together. So those early conversations, the brief is often fairly broad, and we might hear words like trust, or they're all working in their own silos, more committed to their own departments and functions than they are to the team. Team meetings are boring or a bit confusing. We'll get some data. But now is not the time to commit to what are the pieces of work. It's not that from that initial brief when we've spoken to one person that we can do an effective design. If we base a team coaching design based on one conversation with one individual, it'll be really hit or miss, whether it even touches the sides of what's needed, because we're working with one perspective, and often a perspective that's not very psychologically minded or very informed about dynamics and what might be happening in the team.
Yeah. Yeah, and one way to start to get a sense of what's happening in the team is to invite the team to a team engagement session, which really is another way of thinking about the chemistry session that we're so used to in as coaches. To not, because that's another, I think, mistake I made in that piece of work that I described at the outset today. There was no chemistry meeting. The team had not had a chance to meet me beforehand. The team had not had a chance to possibly compare me to other team coaches out there, and I had not had a chance to sit down with the team and have a conversation about what great would look like, what their hopes and concerns about this work might be, and so it's such an easy. Again, I'm saying all this because I just want to underline how easy it is to miss some of these steps. And you probably wouldn't think about skipping a chemistry session in individual coaching, and we shouldn't in team coaching either. And in that. And talking about structure and facilitation, that session is probably still fairly structured and facilitated by you. It's like, okay, guys, we have an hour or an hour and a half together, and this is, here's a bit of a contract for how we're going to use that time. And it's now and yet another opportunity to start observing the team, spend some time with them. And of course, you've parked that notion. Okay, they want to become one team, and now you're starting to, as you observe them, as you're with them in real time, you're gonna maybe other figures will become will emerge, and you may start to notice that, my God, they open so many threads in so many different conversations. It's like I'm starting to notice they can't stay with one particular idea for more than 5 minutes. That's probably just as valuable as the official brief you got at the beginning.
Yeah. They're so passionate about what they're doing that everybody's talking over each other.
Yeah.
And yet they're not yet able to build that into something meaningful.
Yeah.
I've encountered that before. Or we might have the opposite. We might get in and find that it's really hard to get people to speak up. A lot of people are withholding, are being incredibly careful about what they say, or telling you that we're actually a very high performing team, and yet you're not really noticing, not really feeling like the energy's flowing or there's any great connection between team members. It's not feeling like that. So the
Or wait, this happened too, right? Or you start to notice that the team leader is really questioning the need to attend that team engagement session.
yes,
And that's data too. That tells you something when the team leader says, "Well, yeah, you go ahead, have that." But something came up for me, so I won't be here for the whole full hour. Or
where a team leader doesn't see themselves as intrinsic to the functioning of the team and as a key role in the team's functioning, as having an impact, a necessary impact. When they talk about the team, they mean others, not me. We might not really realize that could happen until it does, and you're in the room and you realize, so this is important data. This is starting to give us a bit more of a sense of what it's going to be like working with this team. Then from, if you've done an engagement session, Al, and the team says to you, yeah, we want to go ahead, we want to work with you, we're up for it, we're really up for this journey, and you feel like you're up for it and you want to work with them as well, where next?
Well, but again, so the process that we're outlining is really an example, and it's not our way or the only way. But one important next step would be to have a bit of a that first launch session. We call it a team launch. Now, of course, if the team exists, then you could think about, or if the team has been together for quite some time already, you might think about it as a team relaunch kind of session. But it's really to sit down with the team and start to think about with the team what its real learning objectives might be. Have a first conversation to get them to think about great team experiences that they've had in the past, and maybe talk about, and maybe unpack some of the not so great team experiences that they've had in the past, and get a sense for what is it that you're looking for. So maybe a question around, what does a highly effective team look like for you? What is a high performing team for you? What are the qualities or attributes of that? Not according to expert 1 or expert 2 or expert 3. There's so many people that will are only too happy to tell us what an effective team looks like.
Yeah.
But they're not in your shoes. So let's unpack that and then get a bit of a sense of, to what extent are you already living up to some of those qualities and characteristics that you describe. And so of course there's the content and the process there. Again, that's the content of the conversation, and that will give you that's interesting information. And again, it's another opportunity for you to start to observe the process, i.e. the dynamics, the way in which they interact, that we've spoken about, I think, in a previous episode, which contains as much, if not more, data about who this team really is. So anyway, I'm using too many words, but that's the team launch session or relaunch.
I think it's really helpful, Al. It brings it to life and makes it real, and thinks about, there's what I hear you say. You're really establishing some ground, some common ground, not just the expert, the coach is expert, coming in with their own ground about, here's my model of team, and by the way, it's backed up by all this research, and my job is to mold you to fit this frame. Is to really get in and understand and help them to understand and get a shared view about their context and a view of the opportunity. Now, at this stage, if a team has suffered from toxic behaviors, if the team's feeling threatened, let's say there's a strong blame culture, these sorts of things. And yet it's highly unlikely the team's going to take the risk of revealing all that at this stage. You can expect that you may get some glimmers or more of a felt sense, but they may not risk putting that into words at this stage. So all the time throughout each of these stages, we're looking to build the relationship where more of what's invisible can become visible. Yeah. So sometimes a piece of work may warrant some further discovery work, and I quite enjoy doing a discovery phase at times. And it'll depend on the nature of the team coaching contract, what that looks like.
It's interesting that in my mind I just skipped right over that, isn't it? Yeah. I think that says more. That says more about my relationship with assessment tools and things than anything else. But yeah, it may not even be a choice that you get to make as the team coach. Then maybe there's certain organizations that will say, well, at the outset of this work and maybe upon concluding it, we'll do this particular Belbin assessment or whatever else may be out there, or use a team selfie as our product at Team Coaching Studio is called, and get it. Or you may choose to engage in some one-on-one interviews with the different team members. I find myself that when I do that, though, I got a double problem. It's like all of a sudden I've got so much data, and and you get these assessment reports, and one score is a 3.5, and another score is a 3.4, and you go, is that it? And so is that relevant? And the other problem is, now, how do I share all that data back with the team without showing up as some kind of an expert, who holds all the data and is now going to share it. I don't know.
Exactly. So discovery, if we go back to the purpose of discovery, I think of it as creating awareness. How do we heighten awareness of where the opportunities are and what exists in the team, what's well developed in the team, and where are the learning opportunities? And earlier on in this conversation, you used the word learning. And at the time, what went through my head is how many teams I work with never use that word. They use the word performance or goals or effectiveness sometimes. But the idea of what is it we need to learn as a team is not even on the horizon. So it's an opportunity to really sow the seeds of that idea, the idea that learning's always possible, and that a team doesn't just, a group of people don't just come together and perform well together off straight away. Otherwise, the sporting teams wouldn't need coaches, would they? We wouldn't do so many rehearsals between games. It's learning to leverage the power of the collective in a really meaningful way takes some work. So it's sowing the seeds of that idea and then helping to heighten awareness around that. Now, one activity that we like to do that is a structured exercise is called Best Teams, Worst Teams. It's not an uncommon exercise because you can find many exercises like this around where you get a team to really share stories with each other about the best team they've ever experienced and what happened there. You're looking for them to generate some real excitement and energy around it. And the same thing, tell stories about the worst team. And again, to tell those stories with meaning and feeling. And what can come out of that is, for the team, some sense of where the learning might be for them, what they're aspiring for. Now, that's a classic facilitated exercise. At the same time, you can double hat it and treat it as a coaching exercise. So whilst the team is going about this collective activity of coming up with their idea of what a best team is, you can be off the pitch as the coach, observing and using your felt sense, two different modes, One's the helicopter view or the balcony view. The other is really, what's it feel like being with this team right now? To gather different kind of quality of data that may be really useful about the team's process. It may give an opportunity also, once the team have come up with their idea of best team, to invite them to reflect on. So when you reflect on yourselves as a team, how would you rate yourselves against your own model? Where do you think you are and where do you think the learning is? But hopefully, as listeners can hear, approaching that in a non-judgmental way, in an aspirational way, rather than in a way that's normative or comparative to other teams. Because every team sits within a unique context, which requires different mindsets and different behaviors of them. I don't think there is one homogenous model of great team, as much as the leadership books would love us to believe that. And of course, it sells thousands and thousands of dollars worth of instruments and workshops. But I think it really hits the spot of what's really hit in the here and now. It's theoretical.
Yeah, it's that one size fits all approach, which only rarely works.
Yeah.
But anyway, I like what you're describing because it takes us in the team coaching journey really from the beginning into the middle part, so to speak, where we get a better idea of what the real work is and what it will take. And I'm going back to the original languaging. What will it actually take for this team to become one team?
Yes.
So you get a better idea of what the different pieces of work are, and then maybe the what we call coaching. Maybe that's when that part now starts, because we know what the pieces of work are, and we can do a bit of coaching around the different pieces of work, and potentially there, really continue that journey into from structure to more emergence, where a first coaching session may still have a very specific topic. Like, okay, so today we're going to talk about the different communication styles in this team, but as time goes by, you get maybe more into a type of coaching, which is, all right, team, have a conversation together, a conversation that was planned or that wasn't planned, but have a conversation. If it wasn't planned, just have a conversation about what's most meaningful for you to talk about at this time. And my contract there changes a little bit into a contract around, well, I'm going to be here and observe and see to what extent some of the work that we've been doing is actually translating into your day to day. And step in whenever I feel that I've got something of value to share with you with my coaching mirror, and help you make sense of what's happening. Help you extract some collective meaning around the work that we've been doing and that's still ongoing. So a more emergent kind of team coaching approach.
Yeah, great. So let's say through the team launch, the discovery phase, one of the aspects of the team that became figure was, let's say, the one you talked about before, where the team has lots of different ideas and team members are contributing loads of different ideas. There's lots of positive energy around it, but somehow it doesn't seem to be building into anything. So meetings end without the feeling of something being really carried forward. We may have a team coaching session around that. We may have a team coaching session about how teams identify from all those possibilities really meaningful units of work and see them through to completion. And that would be a very, very powerful session. Now, not every team will need that, or that won't be the most useful learning for them. And this is why we can't codify it. It's come out of the phenomenological data of being with that team, of the norms and patterns that have developed in that particular team. So the initial structure gives way to emergence of the figures that are most meaningful for the transformation of the team. And then we can have team coaching sessions about those. And then another thing we might also include is what we call live action coaching. If I'm live action coaching, I'm oftentimes working with a team in their real meeting situation. as you say, I'm observing to see how effectively, let's say the team with all the ideas, how effectively they're applying that, not just in a learning environment, a team coaching session, but how's that now translating to their real life meetings? And hopefully I'll get an opportunity, or I'll contract with them to have an opportunity to have a pause in their team meeting where we can reflect on how that's going. I may even identify an experiment to offer them to build on that learning. So you're listening to each other's ideas, you're picking up on a meaningful unit of work. Now the experiment I want you to take for the next 10 minutes is to deepen the conversation around that one idea that you're working with. See what that means for you. And in this way, the team's developing a lot more capacity and range in how they work and interact together, a lot more awareness of their process and the influence and impact they're having on each other.
And then we're coming to the end of our session, and we're coming to the end of that team coaching journey. And just like any coaching engagement, any coaching process, has an ending, and so there's going to be a coaching session. That's the last coaching session, at least for now. Of course, that can give rise to a whole new cycle. But at that time, it's you're leaving the team in its own capable hands, and so therefore, I wouldn't design that last kind of coaching session. I would ask the team to design it, and they should be perfectly capable of doing that at that point. And so it's a bit of celebration and integration of the learning, and possibly a measurement of the milestones that were and the results that were achieved, and that's it. And that's a possible team coaching journey in a nutshell, really.
Yeah. So when we helicopter back up over across this episode today, what are the 2 or 3 key messages we want the listener to take from this?
That so don't be like me. And what I mean by that is that make sure that you use structure to build safety. But then reduce the amount of structure as soon as that's feasible, as soon as that's possible.
Fantastic. And the second one I would bring in is that the meaningful pieces of work, what's really needing to happen, will emerge from the field. By that we mean you get into the field, and it's only once you're in it that you start to notice beyond the trees that were in there that there's actually rabbits in there, and there's moles, and there's frogs, and there's other insects. So you get into the field and you let it impact you, and that gives you a sense of where to direct the work. So the structure provides emergence. It enables the emergence to the meaningful figures that are wanting to emerge to appear. It helps the work to become more meaningful.
You don't know what the work is until you start doing the work.
Yeah, till you start doing the work. Well put. Yeah.
And by all means, start doing the work.
So a question for our listener to end with today is, what would a team coaching journey look like for you? Yeah. What might some of the containers be? Yeah. And how might you go establishing enough psychological safety to get the permission to really get in and coach?
Yeah, great question. Goodbye for now, everyone. See you real soon for episode 4. See you soon.
See you soon.
Thanks for joining today's journey of Teams Transformed.
If this sparked a new insight or a deeper question, we invite you to sit with it, not to solve it, but to let it unfold.
For resources, community, and reflection prompts, visit teamcoachingstudio.com.
Until the next time, stay present, stay curious, and keep leaning into the art of emergence.